It was a late Sunday afternoon, the kind of humid heat Charleston always carried from the southern coast. Sunlight slipped through the moss-covered oak trees, scattering over the cobblestone path that led to the Magnolia Porch, the restaurant where my family had planned to meet for brunch. No one spoke loudly. No one looked excited. The whole thing felt more like an obligation than a family gathering. The moment I sat down in the seat without a name card, my mother, Margaret Monroe, lifted her mimosa, tilted her head slightly, and smiled with eyes as cold as the early autumn breeze. Then she said, softly but clear enough for everyone to hear, "If it weren't for pity, do you really think anyone would have invited you here?" Right then, I heard the clink of glasses, the faint tap of silverware on porcelain, and the quiet echo of my own heartbeat. My aunt, Nora, gave a half smile and added, almost lazily, "Oh, come on, let her feel noticed for a moment." My brother, Ethan, chuckled that short, knowing laugh he always had when the game was about to begin. No one defended me. No one even looked my way. The whole table felt like a stage already cast. The sharp-tongued mother, the indifferent aunt, the mocking brother, and me, the extra, trained to smile on cue and stay silent when expected. I picked up my coffee, trying to keep my hand from shaking. The rich, roasted smell filled the air, but it couldn't drown out the metallic taste rising in my throat. "Thanks for inviting me," I said quietly, my voice, so even it almost surprised me. No one replied. Only the soft, golden light cut through the curtains and hit my mother's mimosa, making the bubbles shimmer like they were mocking all of us. In that moment, it felt like my soul had stepped outside my body. I could hear the waiter calling out an order nearby, a kid laughing at the corner table, but everything sounded muffled, like trapped behind glass. And that's when a thought hit me, cold, clear, and impossible to shake. Maybe I'd been wrong all these years, thinking that if I just tried hard enough, my family would finally stop seeing me as an outsider. When the waiter set down the last plate of Eggs Benedict, I looked around and realized nobody was really hungry. They just needed to show up, say a few polite things, then snap a happy family photo for social media. And right then, I knew I was just a prop in that picture. My name's Olivia Monroe. I'm 36, living alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in Austin, Texas. I work for a private firm that cleans up messy financial cases, fake balance sheets, shady expenses, debts someone wants buried. I'm the one who finds the truth in the numbers. My job takes patience, logic, and the ability to see what others try to hide. Ironically, none of that ever helped when it came to my own family. Since I was little, I've always been the reliable one. When my mom forgot to pay the electric bill, I called the company. When Aunt Nora couldn't figure out how to book a flight online, I paid for it. When my brother Ethan said, "I'll pay you back right after my bonus," I believed him even though not a single dollar ever came back. They'd always say in that sweet, careless tone, "Olivia, you're so good at this stuff. You get it better than we do." And just like that, everything became expected. Mom needed a flight to Baton Rouge? I handled it. Aunt Nora needed a hotel booked? I handled that too. Ethan wanted to buy a ring for his girlfriend, but was a little short on cash. Guess who handled that one? At first, I thought it was family love, the duty of the mature and successful daughter. But over time, I realized that in their language, responsibility really meant Olivia will pay. Even the cabin at Cypress Lake, the one everyone still calls the family getaway, turned into a bitter joke. On paper, it's under my name, but to them, it's our shared property, the Monroe family legacy. I still remember the last time my mom called. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "Sweetheart, don't forget to pay the cabin insurance this month, okay?" I heard that company's hard to deal with. The moment she said it, something inside me tightened. I realized the word thank you never showed up in those kinds of calls. Some nights, I sit in my apartment in Austin, the desk lamp glowing over a cup of peppermint tea. The scent always calms me, like it could wash away all those careless words. But no matter how much I try, something always lingers, a faint bitterness of being alone. Someone once asked me, "Olivia, why don't you just tell them how you feel? Why keep putting up with it?" I just smiled. Because in my family, the one who speaks up is always the one to blame. Every morning, I wake up at 6. My apartment in Austin is so quiet, I can hear the soft hum of the air conditioner behind the wall. I make a cup of peppermint tea, open my laptop, and look out the window where the oak trees cast long green shadows over the little street below. Everything is neat, organized, under control. But some things can't be tidied up by hand. Some things can only be wrapped in silence. My days run on the same rhythm: work, meetings, spreadsheets, then home. And in between those steady beats are endless calls and messages from family, each with a different reason, but they all end the same way. I have to take care of it. One Monday morning, Mom called while I was driving to the office. Her voice was calm, almost like she was reading a grocery list. "Olivia, can you send me the money for the plane ticket now? Prices are going up." The second I heard it, my hand automatically opened the banking app. I've done it so many times I've lost count. That afternoon, Ethan texted me. "Hey sis, I just got nominated for a new position. Can I borrow your card for a few days? Just to pay for a gift for a client." His few days never actually meant a few days. I knew that and still said yes. I live like an invisible support system. They need something, I show up. But when I go quiet, they disappear. Even the cabin at Cypress Lake, the one I used to think of as my quiet getaway, turned into something else. Now, it's a place I keep paying for like I'm renting my own memories. Every time I see photos of them there on Facebook grilling, laughing, the sunset glowing over the lake, I feel this strange ache. Beneath the caption "Family Weekend at the Lake" are all their smiling faces except mine. Before every summer, their messages come in. "Did you pay for the cabin maintenance yet?" No one ever asks, "Are you coming?" One night, after closing my laptop, I noticed my credit card had another $500 charged. Turned out Ethan used it to book a hotel room for the weekend. No call, no text, nothing, just a cold transaction line. Hilton Garden, New Orleans. In that moment, my heart slowed down. Not because of the money, but because of the truth staring back at me. They didn't see me as family anymore, just a resource on standby. I sat there, staring at the screen, at that single line of text that somehow mapped out my whole life, every road leading to the same ending. I pay. They enjoy. I didn't get angry. I just felt empty, a kind of emptiness that spread slowly, like fog inside your chest. And maybe that's the scariest part, when you stop feeling hurt and start feeling tired of existing among people who still call themselves your family. Some nights, I just can't sleep. I lie there staring at the ceiling, listening to the slow spin of the fan, and ask myself, why do I keep letting them cross the line? That question comes back again and again, until I see my father's face so clearly I can almost smell the pine wood and hear his old radio playing Elvis Presley's "Can't Help Falling in Love." I was 16 then. My dad, Henry Monroe, was repainting the porch at the Cypress Lake cabin. It was July, hot enough to make the air shimmer above the water. He stood on a ladder, careful with every brushstroke, and said, "Olivia, you've got to be the one who keeps things steady. That's how you prove you belong here." I remember my palms slick with sweat as I handed him a new can of paint. He never taught me how to cry when I was tired, only how to fix things when they broke. "If you want people to trust you," he went on, "do the jobs no one else wants to do. Sooner or later, they'll lean on you." I believed him. And maybe that belief became the strongest chain I've ever carried. When he died suddenly of a heart attack, Mom crumbled under the weight of being the responsible one. But instead of learning to stand on her own, she found a new pillar: me. From that year on, every family decision ran through me, paying the insurance, checking accounts, handling the cabin taxes. And each time I finished, she'd smile faintly and say, "You're just like your father, always the one who takes care of everything." At first, I felt proud. I thought it meant love. But now, when I think back, it makes me shiver, because I've realized love can disguise itself as duty, and duty never gets tired. Cypress Lake used to be my paradise. Every summer, Ethan and I would fish while Dad played his guitar on the porch and Mom baked apple pie in the kitchen. The laughter, the insects, the sound of the waves all blended into something I once believed would stay with me forever. But now it's different. The cabin still stands, yet every time I see it, I feel like I'm paying rent on my own memories. And in that moment, I understood I wasn't protecting my father's legacy anymore. I was just paying maintenance on a family that died with him a long time ago. That day in Charleston, the sky was clear as glass, but inside me, everything felt cloudy. I flew in because Mom said, "It's just a small family gathering, don't say no." I knew exactly what she meant by small, a 10-person table, everyone playing their part, and me, always the supporting character. The Magnolia porch sat on a quiet, oak-lined street. The air carried a hint of salt from the Ashley River and the sweet scent of jasmine. I wore a simple beige linen dress, neat, understated. I thought, the less attention I draw, the safer I'll be. The moment I walked in, I knew I was wrong. Everyone was already seated. In front of each place setting was a name card in bold letters except for one empty chair in the corner. "Why don't you sit there, dear?" Mom said, her voice honeyed with just enough vinegar. I pulled the chair back, feeling every pair of eyes on me. Ethan raised an eyebrow, smiled faintly, and said, "You look like you just crawled out of a storage room, Olivia." No one reacted. Mom didn't even look up, just stirred her mimosa in slow circles, leaving a perfect little whirlpool of disdain. Aunt Nora coughed, trying to hide her laugh. Right then, something in the air cracked, small, invisible, but sharp enough for me to feel something splinter inside. "Are you still working at that accounting firm?" Mom asked, pretending to sound concerned. "Yes, still there." "Oh, I thought you'd quit. Heard they've been letting people go." The air around the table turned heavy. The waiter set a plate of eggs Benedict in front of me. Steam rose, carrying the smell of butter and black pepper, but I couldn't taste a thing. I picked up my knife, trying to keep my hand from shaking. Her words froze me. Part of me still wanted to believe she didn't mean it, that it was just her way, her habit of asserting power through tiny, invisible stings. But when she finally looked up, the faint smile on her lips said it all. She knew exactly what she was doing. I took a sip of coffee. The bitterness slid down my throat, followed by a cold rush along my spine. Every sound in the restaurant blurred, only the shallow laughter of my family remained, like I wasn't even there. Then Ethan raised his glass to Mom and said loudly, "To family and to our most reliable sister." Everyone laughed, except me. In that moment, I understood something more clearly than ever before. I wasn't part of them anymore. I was a service provider, the one who pays, fixes, and stays quiet so they can feel good about themselves. I sat still, staring at my cold coffee, and heard my own voice whisper in my head, quiet but certain, "Enough." That night, I took a late flight back to Austin. From the plane window, the city lights spread out like a golden net, beautiful, in a way that hurt to look at. Inside me, there was only a strange stillness, the kind that comes when you finally stop trying to make someone love you. By the time the taxi turned onto my street, it was past midnight. Austin was warmer than Charleston, the air carrying that soft, earthy smell after rain. I turned off the radio and sat in silence the whole ride. When the driver said, "We're here, ma'am," I nodded, realizing I'd been clenching my fists so tight my nails had left marks in my palms. My apartment glowed softly under the warm yellow light. Everything was exactly as I'd left it that morning: the stack of books by the desk, the upside-down peppermint teacup by the sink, the throw blanket draped over the couch. But it didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt empty, like even the room was holding its breath, waiting for me to decide something. I set my bag down, made a fresh cup of tea. The minty steam curled up and melted into the lamplight. Then I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and rested my fingers on the keyboard. The blue glow lit my face, reflecting an expression I didn't quite recognize: calm, but sharp. In the field, I typed the name Jared Coleman, the lawyer who'd helped me keep the cabin back in 2009. In the subject line, I wrote 2 words: "Ready now." I paused for a moment. So short, it almost meant nothing. But I knew it was the first declaration of my life. After hitting send, I opened another file, the family finance tracker I'd maintained for over 10 years. Dozens of rows appeared, each one a name, each one a debt. And I started deleting them. Mom's secondary credit card gone. Shared account with Ethan closed. Cabin insurance payments auto renewal off. Every time the system asked, "Are you sure?" I clicked yes without hesitation. It felt like unhooking one chain after another. Click by click, the sound echoed in the quiet room. Outside, the city noise faded away until there was nothing left but the rhythm of the keyboard and the steady beat of my heart stronger than ever. I opened my documents legal folder. There it was, the cabin contract, receipts, insurance forms, property tax records. All under my name. I scrolled to the blank space at the bottom and typed, "For sale, private transaction only." Then I hit save. When the blinking cursor stopped, I exhaled a long, quiet breath, like reaching the top of a mountain I didn't know I'd been climbing. Leaning back, I looked up at the ceiling. The room suddenly felt wider. Not because I'd cleaned anything, but because I'd finally cleared away the heaviest thing of all, the need to take care of everyone. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "You get home safe? Mom says you were a little sensitive today. Don't take it personally." I stared at it, said nothing. Then another message popped up a few minutes later. "Hey, can I borrow your card for a few days? Just need to book Vegas flights. I'll pay you back right after." This time, I didn't even finish reading. I opened my contacts, found Ethan Monroe, and hit block. No tears. No anger. Just silence, deep and still, like the surface of a lake after the last ripple fades. I glanced at the clock. Almost midnight. The tea on the table had gone cold, its peppermint scent fading. I smiled, not sad, not happy, just the small, quiet smile of someone shedding old skin. Tomorrow morning, nothing outside will look different. But inside, everything has changed. For the first time in my life, I don't have to save anyone. And that, finally, feels like living. It only took 2 weeks. 14 days since I hit send and started undoing every invisible chain. 14 days for the Monroe family's little world to start cracking. The first message came Monday morning. "Ethan, why was my card declined in Vegas? Don't tell me you did something." I looked at the screen, took a sip of coffee, and set the phone down. 10 minutes later, another message popped up. "Olivia, quit messing around. I'm at the checkout counter. The card's not going through. Call me. Now." I didn't call. I just turned the sound off and kept eating breakfast. The toast was still crisp, the butter still warm, only difference was, this time I could actually taste it. By noon, Mom called. Her voice trembled, a hint of panic behind it. "The power's out at my house. The bill says unpaid. Is something wrong with your shared system?" For a few seconds, I said nothing. In my mind, I saw her standing in that old Baton Rouge house, lights off, curtains half drawn. Then I took a deep breath and said slowly, "I don't manage that account anymore, Mom." "What?" "Since when?" "Since I realized I shouldn't." Silence. Just a soft sigh, like wind slipping through a crack in the door. Then the line went dead. The next afternoon, Aunt Nora sent a group message. A photo of the cabin popped up on my screen, grass growing up to the porch, dust on the door, the porch light out. "Olivia, what's going on?" "The insurance bill wasn't paid. They said the cabin's now listed as high risk." I read every word slowly, like I was reading an obituary for an era that had ended. Didn't reply. Just set the phone down and let the screen go dark. Over the next few days, the messages came in waves: anger, blame, pleading, then silence. Ethan called 4 times in a row. Mom texted, "You're tearing this family apart. How could you be so ungrateful?" And me, I just sat there, listening to the soft sound of rain tapping against the window, feeling a peace I hadn't known in years. That's when I realized, when you stop reacting, people are forced to hear the echo of their own behavior. One morning, I got up early, made coffee, and opened the window. Cool, damp air rushed in. On the oak tree outside my balcony, a woodpecker was tapping steadily, patient and rhythmic. I smiled. The world keeps going, whether the Monroes fall apart or not. 3 days later, Ethan sent his final message. Didn't think you'd actually do this to your own family.
Congrats.
You win. I read it and smiled softly. I didn't win. I just stopped losing. A week passed in silence. No calls. No apologies. No one asking if I was okay. And honestly, that silence was exactly what I needed. I spent my time cleaning the apartment, putting fresh flowers in a vase, cooking dinner just for myself. Each night, I sat by the window with a book, listening to the sound of crickets outside, peace seeping into every breath. I thought about the cabin, that wooden house I once believed held all our love. Now it's just an empty place. But to me, it's not a loss, it's proof I survived once I stopped saving everyone else. Silence has never tasted this sweet. And sometimes, silence is the very first language of freedom. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon in Austin. The kind of steady, thin rain that soaked into the air and made everything smell like wet earth. I was washing dishes when I heard a knock at the door. At first, I thought it was my neighbor. But then the knocking came again, faster this time, familiar in a way that made my heart pause for a beat. I wiped my hands and walked to the hallway. Through the peephole, I saw Ethan. He was wearing a gray hoodie, his hair messy, his face more tired than I'd ever seen it. In his hand was a brown paper bag, probably cheap beer. I hesitated for a moment, then opened the door. Not because I wanted to see him, but because I knew this would be our last conversation. He looked up, his voice rough. I'm not here to argue. I just want to talk. I didn't invite him in. The door stayed open just enough for the wind to slip through. The rain kept pattering on the porch roof. You shouldn't have done that, he said, eyes down. Cutting everything off, closing accounts, selling the cabin. You have no idea how shocked Mom is. I looked straight at him, my voice calm. You call it shock. I call it clarity. Ethan sighed, forcing a half smile. We're family, Olivia. No matter what happens, we should talk things out, not handle it like this. I cut him off, quiet but firm. Family doesn't use blood as a bargain. If I have to stay silent and keep paying just to belong, that's not love. He frowned, voice rising. You're always so sensitive. It's not that serious. And right then, something in me sank, that familiar wave of exhaustion. I'd heard that line too many times, every time they hurt me. I said slowly, being sensitive is the only thing that kept me alive in this family. It taught me who actually cares, and who only needs me for what I can give. Ethan didn't answer. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the wooden porch. He shifted the bag from one hand to the other, standing there like he wanted to say more but couldn't find the words. I just want things to go back to how they were, he said quietly. I shook my head. How they were means I keep paying and pretending it doesn't hurt.
No, Ethan.
I've lived like that long enough. Silence filled the space between us. He looked at me one last time, lost and unsure, then nodded.
I guess you really have changed. No, I said.
I just stopped pretending. I stepped forward, hand on the doorknob. If you need something figured out, don't knock on this door again unless you're bringing more than empty promises. He nodded, lips parting as if to speak, but nothing came out. When I closed the door, the sound of rain rushed in for a second before fading away. No knocking, no apology, just the faint sound of wet shoes walking down the steps, growing distant. I leaned back against the door, listening to my heartbeat blend with the rain. No victory, no defeat, just an ending. And in that moment, I understood something simple and true. Not answering is still an answer. 3 months later, I left Austin. No noise, no goodbyes. Just one quiet October morning, I folded my old blanket, packed my books into boxes, and drove northwest, toward where the hill country stretched out under the soft golden light of a Texas fall. The road twisted through rows of oak and cedar trees. The scent of wild grass mixed with the breeze, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe again. I bought a small house on a slope, red tiled roof, a wooden porch overlooking the valley. Behind it, a garden just big enough for rosemary and mint. That first morning in my new home, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, hitting the steaming cup of coffee on the counter. I opened the door and listened birds singing along the fence, the smell of damp earth lingering after last night's rain. No buzzing phone, no desperate messages, no "can you help me with this, honey?" Just me and a light, effortless kind of silence. I spent the morning arranging my things, hung a few landscape photos I'd taken, laid a hand-woven rug by the fireplace, and played some soft jazz. The room filled with sunlight and the scent of fresh wood. For the first time in years, I felt no need to prove anything to anyone. That afternoon, while watering the plants on the porch, I heard a soft tap at the front door. I walked over and picked up a postcard, no envelope, no return address. On the front was a lake at sunset, purple and orange melting into still water, just like Cypress Lake. On the back, only 4 handwritten words. "You deserved better." I stood there for a moment, quiet. No name, no explanation. It could have been for Mom, or Ethan, or someone who'd simply seen everything. But strangely, I didn't need to know. I just smiled and set the postcard on the windowsill, next to the mint plant swaying in the breeze. Inside my chest, a warmth rose, not happiness, but the calm of someone who no longer needs to be seen to feel real. I made another cup of tea and sat down on the rocking chair outside. In the distance, the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky the color of honey. I closed my eyes, listening to the wind slip under the porch roof. It wasn't a new beginning, I thought. It was simply living for the first time for myself. That evening, as the last bit of sunset faded behind the hills, I sat by the window with a cup of peppermint tea in my hands. A cool breeze drifted in from the valley, carrying the scent of earth, leaves, and the soft hum of crickets. The little house glowed in warm yellow light, peaceful, like the deep breath that comes after a storm. I thought about everything that had happened: the cabin, that brunch table in Charleston, all the bills I'd paid, not just with money, but with my self-respect. For years, I tried to be the good one in the family, the fixer, the quiet one who never said no. And in the end, the only thing I managed to keep was the emptiness. I used to believe that if I gave enough, they'd finally see my worth. But love doesn't grow from sacrifice, it grows from respect. If a relationship costs you your silence, your energy, and your pride, it's not love. It's a service. And services always come with a bill. I set my cup down and listened to the wind whisper through the window frame. Somewhere out there, Mom was probably still complaining about her stubborn daughter, and Ethan was telling his friends I was too sensitive. But for the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain, defend, or prove anything anymore. I'd stopped living to convince anyone I was worthy of their love. Now, I just wanted to live in a way that made me feel worthy of my own life. On the table, the postcard still sat there, its corner curling slightly in the breeze. Those 4 words, "you deserved better," felt like a quiet seal on the road I'd just walked. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need anyone to come back. I just needed to know I'd left the place that forced me to shrink every time I existed. When the clock struck 9, I turned off the lights and stepped out onto the porch. The Texas sky stretched wide and full of stars, so vast it made me feel small, but free. Crickets sang across the grass, keeping time with my steady heartbeat. I whispered, mostly to myself, if love comes with a bill, it's not love. It's a transaction. And I've paid in full. Then I looked out into the dark, where the hills melted into shadows, and said softly, "The rest I'm keeping for myself." And maybe that's how freedom really begins, when you stop giving just to be allowed to stay.